back in the strongest possible terms. With me this morning to discuss this awful news and the rest of the day's issues, we've got the Assistant Minister for Social Services, Senator Mitch Fifield, and Labor MP Andrew Leigh. Gentlemen, good morning to you. Minister, first of all, congratulations on your appointment as Minister. Secondly,
thanks, Kieran.
A shocking attack, an Australian caught up in it. A reminder that, when you think that terrorism has been a lull, and then we see another awful attack like this on targeting very much a Western shopping centre.
Yeah, it's a shocking, brutal atrocity, and to think that people were just going about their business, shopping with family, with friends, and you find yourself in the middle of a massacre. It's just hard to imagine how those people must feel. But what it tells us again is that this group, who are associated with Al-Qaeda, have a worldview which is completely antithetical to a Western liberal democratic worldview, and you can only think that the reason that they attacked where they did is because it's an open place, it's a shopping centre, it's a soft target, it's somewhere that embraces freedom of choice, a consumer society. They're really trying to hit symbols of what it is that constitutes freedom in our sort of worldview.
And this centre that Senator Fifield refers to, Andrew Leigh, frequented by expats in Nairobi, as well as the others, the President's own nephew and his nephew's fiancée were killed in this awful attack as well.
It's just shocking, isn't it, Kieran? And I certainly agree with what Mitch has said there. Al-Shabaab, as an Al-Qaeda affiliate, has really marked itself out by being one of the most successful Al-Qaeda affiliates and continuing to recruit even into the United States. And here it seems to be taking one of the awful lessons from the Mumbai massacre, that these most cowardly of attacks can spread fear. I hope it's going to be over soon, and the advisors that seem to be there, Israeli, American and British, will hopefully bring it to a swift end.
Let's hope so. Let's move on to domestic issues now. And the asylum seeker debate continues. Scott Morrison has said that they won't be providing advice on boat arrivals as they happen on a daily basis, or even more frequently as it has happened in recent months. Rather, it's going to be done on a weekly basis. Is that enough?
Well, initially the briefings will be on a weekly basis, and if there's to be any change to that, it'll be based upon operational considerations. But it's important to keep in clear view what the objective is, and the objective is to stop the boats, and every tool at the disposal of the Australian government needs to be marshalled to that end. And last week, General Campbell and the task force took the decisions in relation to the protocols for releasing information. And we've got to remember that...
So this wasn't decided by Scott Morrison before meeting with the General, because he did seem to be indicating that this could be the path they head down at the start of the election campaign.
Well, he was flagging that this was a possibility. So the decision has been taken, but we've got to bear in mind that people smugglers use information as a tool to ply their trade, and we want.
But who made the decision? I'm just trying to work that out. Was it Scott Morrison or the General?
Oh, look, in terms of the formal decision-making process, you'll need to ask Scott Morrison. But obviously, Minister Morrison was involved in that decision. But it's important to keep in mind that it's the people smugglers can use this information, that every time a boat gets coverage, they can say to their potential clients that, look, we've got another boat successfully there, so it's worth you paying your money. It's important that it's the Australian government that controls the release of information, and the Australian government determines how that information can be released, rather than allowing the people smugglers the opportunity to use it as they wish.
Does that make sense, to take the information away from the people smugglers and deny their opportunity to exploit it?
Well, put like that, I think it does, Kieran, but there's two main problems with it. The first is that it brings about a culture of secrecy within the Department of Immigration, a culture we saw under the Howard government with the Cornelia Rao affair, and now which seems to be creeping back. The government seems to have gone from stopping the boats to buying the boats to hiding the boats. And the second challenge is how are you going to stop all that information getting out?
But they're not hiding the boats, are they? They're saying they're going to do a weekly update on this.
In an attempt to try and keep this information from public view. But Kieran, the challenge they will have,
rubbish.
The challenge they will have is whether they're going to gag the administrator of Christmas Island, whether they're then going to go and gag the people of Christmas Island. Because yesterday's boat arrival, the 8th since the election, was found out about through the people of Christmas Island. Are you intending to gag them? That seems pretty draconian.
Don't be ridiculous.
In that case, how is this going to have an effect?
All we're talking about here is having the people who are involved in running Operation Sovereign Borders making determinations as to information release, the way that it can be done so as to not support what the people smugglers are trying to do. And if we're talking about withholding information, the former government hadn't updated stats for the detention network since May. The former government hadn't updated the statistics for bridging visas since June 2013. So if there's any government that was trying to withhold relevant information from the Australian people, it was the former Labor government. We're going to be upfront, as has been made clear. Initially, briefings will be on a weekly basis, but we want to use all tools at the disposal of the government to try and break the people smugglers' business model. And let's not forget, that business model was actually designed by the former Labor government.
And Andrew Lee, if the military is advising the government to do this, doesn't it make sense that they take their advice, adopt their thinking on this for operational reasons, to hold it back, not on a permanent basis, but on a weekly update basis, so that they're in control, they wrest control of this back from the people smugglers that have been so ruthlessly exploiting it?
But Kieran, that's not going to happen because the people of Christmas Island will ultimately allow this information to be let out. Ultimately, this is not a strategy for stopping people smugglers. I wish it was, but it's a political strategy dreamed up during the election campaign in an attempt to try and reduce media coverage of boat arrivals. I think the Coalition have recognised that although at this stage they've largely adopted Labor's policies, those policies are taking some time to work.
You belatedly, after 6 years, started to adopt our policies, which you had systematically dismantled after you won office.
I'm happy to have a discussion
So it's a bit
about
rich to say that we were adopting your policies. You guys dismantled our policies in the first place, then kicking and screaming adopted large sections of them before the last election.
As you well know, Mitch, from the Nauru approach, which saw over half of the people in Nauru eventually go to Australia and New Zealand, and the approach that we adopted and the Refugee Resettlement Agreement, which sent a very clear message to people smugglers: don't get on a boat, you won't be resettled in Australia.
Gentlemen, we're going to pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us this Monday morning on AM Agenda.
I'm looking for a little mate of mine who works here at IGA. When I first met him, we just seemed to click. Oh, here he is. G'day, Lockie. Lockie's job is to lock hundreds of prices down to save you more all over the store. So look for the lock and save at your local IGA. Nice one, Lockie. Settle down, mate.
This isn't just a classroom, because it's much more than papers, pens, desks and diagrams. This classroom is really in a classroom. This is science, shared. The best teaching the brightest, using brilliant machines to empower local industry to compete on a global scale. Because our most valued resource isn't our technology or even the resource itself, it's our people.
New Palmolive Eye Ritual Shower Gels, inspired by Indian Ayurvedic rituals. This isn't just your shower, this is your sanctuary. Palmolive Eye Ritual. Find your sanctuary.
Cheap insurance, meerkats, two very different things. Listen there, jingle. CompareTheMarket.com.au. Listen mine. CompareTheMeerkat.com.au. Don't even sound same. For compare meerkats, come to comparethemeerkat.com.au. For easy way to find good insurance deal, please go to comparethemarket.com.au. Simples.
Connect with Suzuki for the latest technology and outstanding value, like SX4 Navigator with Bluetooth hands-free, audio streaming and satellite navigation from only $19,990 drive away. See your Suzuki dealer and connect with Suzuki today.
Bringing you a taste of the familiar. It's just one of the lengths we go to make you feel at home.
This is AIM Agenda. Thank you very much for your company. And with me this morning, the Assistant Minister for Social Services, Senator Mitch Fifield, and Labor MP Andrew Leigh. Quite a turbulent time at the NBN at the moment. The whole board has handed its resignation, apparently, to Malcolm Turnbull. Will the government accept them?
Well, Kieran, obviously I've seen the media reports, but I don't know what the circumstances are of the board. But you know, we will obviously ensure, Malcolm Turnbull will ensure that there's good and appropriate governance of the NBN. And
he's been very critical of the NBN, so you'd have to guess that the government will accept most of the resignations.
Well, look, I think part of ensuring good governance of the NBN is that only the portfolio minister, Malcolm Turnbull, comments on governance arrangements. I don't think good governance is served by ministers in other portfolios commenting on the NBN board arrangements.
Quite a shake-up here, Andrew Leigh. Ziggy Switkowski, apparently, he's a much respected former Telstra chief. He's expected to take over as executive chairman.
It's pretty strange stuff, isn't it, Kieran? And I think it highlights the real challenge that the Coalition are going to have with their NBN policy. And I've been out. I did my first street stall the weekend after the election recently, and a lot of people were just getting their heads around the fact that the NBN is going to create a digital divide within suburbs. I've got a petition going to encourage all parliamentarians to put the NBN above politics, to say that we ought to extend that fibre to the home network right through regions where it's begun, because here in Canberra I think people don't want the situation where some people's house prices are up $5,000 because they've got the NBN, and a couple of streets away people don't have the national broadband network.
Do you really think it'll have that sort of, as an economist, do you really think it'll have that sort of impact on house prices?
Well, if you're going to charge $5,000 to connect up the home, it stands to reason that a home that was connected up under Labor's NBN, where everyone got fibre to the home, would be worth $5,000 more. People value this. I mean, I remember door-knocking a household in Amaroo where the couple told me there that they're migrants from India and they love a Skype connection that's super fast, that allows them to feel much more in touch with their homeland than they did before. There's all kinds of uses people can put this technology to.
But there's still going to be fast broadband. That's the thing under the coalition plan.
That's the difference between...
And it's whether or not, why do people need that ultra-fast broadband that you normally see for scientific purposes and medical purposes?
It's a great question, and I think the best way of understanding it is to see it. So the difference between a 25 megabits a second setup, which allows you to basically do slightly quicker Skype than most of us can do, and the 100 to 1,000 megabits a second that you can do with fibre to the home, is you get video conference that's like you're watching high-definition TV. So I've seen school kids at Harrison School linking up to another Japanese school in Hokkaido to do a Japanese lesson in which all of the kids can talk to one another. Really enhances the learning experience. It's really incredibly valuable stuff, and you just couldn't do that on 25 megabits a second.
Yeah, well, look, Andrew is completely misrepresenting what Malcolm Turnbull intends to do. We are for the national broadband network. All political parties are for a national broadband network. That is not what is in debate here. We are not going to see, under our policies, a digital divide. What we're going to do, which is different, is roll out the NBN faster, but we're not going to mandate that every single house has to have the same connection at the same speed. We will provide for fast speeds, speeds which are adequate for what people need.
Well, what about the price issue that Andrew referred to, like suburbs in Canberra where one suburb will have the NBN through the home, fibre to the home, whereas the next suburb will get the cheaper version, the less expensive, faster version, I guess, in terms of the rollout, but not the speed of the fibre once it's delivered under the coalition. And to get that extended from the fibre to the node at the end of the street to your house is going to cost about $5,000.
But that's a decision for an individual household to take as to whether they need fibre to the node. I think most households will decide and discover that the speeds that they get under our NBN are more than adequate for their needs.
Doesn't it discriminate against some households?
So in that circumstance,
but when you're at some households, do you think that there will be a property price impact like Andrew's saying?
I don't think there will be. I don't think there will be. But also, there are so few households in Australia that are hooked up the way that Andrew thinks is optimal. Anyway, I mean, the NBN rollout under the previous government has hardly been a stunning success. They're way behind schedule. They're way over budget. What we're offering is something that is more affordable, that will cost taxpayers less, and that will see houses connected to high-speed broadband much quicker.
And there have been problems with the management, it's got to be said. Beyond the general debate that we're having here about the merits or otherwise of your proposal versus the coalitions, the management issue, there have been problems within the NBN management structure.
Kieran, there were problems with the Snowy Hydro scheme. There were problems in building the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Big infrastructure projects never roll out perfectly, but this one is rolling out effectively. Mitch, if you don't want to pay more for a home which has fibre connected rather than fibre being connected to a cabinet down the street, I'm guessing you're pretty much unique in Australia, because I haven't spoken to a single constituent that wouldn't prefer that fibre come right to their home and they be able to enjoy super fast broadband, e-health, e-education, all those sorts of benefits.
It's because you misrepresent what will be available to them under the sorts of connections and speeds that they'll get under a coalition government.
Free fibre to the home? Will they get free fibre to the home under a coalition government?
We are gearing. Well, we've got two different models here. Yours is fibre to the home. Ours is fibre to the node. What we're saying is that fibre to the node can deliver speeds which will be appropriate for most houses.
Okay, let's move on. I want to ask you about the Labor leadership, which beyond the election, we're still talking about it, but at least this time it's going to the rank and file membership, and it seems a concession from both that the Labor Party was wrong in reducing the sole parent payments. Are you surprised by that, or is this just simply, it's easier to concede that sort of stuff in opposition when you're not paying the bills?
Well, the challenge that emerged from that policy, Kieran, I think, was that we were aiming to ensure that kids weren't in a workless household until they turned 16. But it turned out that for many parents who were affected, the effect was that they were already doing some work, which you were able to do on the sole parent pension. They weren't able to do enough work, and so they were being financially penalised. And I had a few case studies in my own electorate which troubled me. I think the policy intent was right, but the way in which the policies rolled out was problematic.
And in terms of the leadership, who are you backing?
I've selected a candidate. I'm not talking about that publicly.
Do tell, Andrew.
Well, let me tell you why, Mitch. And it's that I want my branch members to have the freedom to make a different decision from me. And they're loving it. I mean, one of my branch members texted me the other day.
You influence them that much, do you?
They texted me the other day and they said, look, I had a call from Bill Shorten the other night and then I had a call from Anthony Albanese. And in what other context would any leader of a major political party have cause to phone a regular party member? But this woman's
tells you something about the Labor Party as a whole, doesn't it?
More engaged in the process of the party in years to come, as a result from having her view solicited. I was on one of your sister programs, The Nation, the other night, and Ross Cameron was arguing pretty forcefully that the Liberal Party should also allow the winds of democracy to sweep into its party room, allow its members a say in selecting the leader. I think having seen the way the process plays out in New Zealand, how it played out with the Miliband brothers and others in the British leadership contest, that it's a pretty darn healthy one.
Well, before I get Senator Fifield's thoughts on that comment you made there about Ross Cameron and his views, I want to ask you about something. I had some correspondence from a viewer who wanted to join, liked the idea of voting for a leader, but then tried to join and they said, oh, you've got to be a member of a union to join. And they said, well, no, I don't want to be a member of the union, I want to join the Labor Party.
Right.
Do you have to change that?
Well, Chris Bowen has argued for changing that in Hearts and Minds, his book. But the reason that we haven't changed it is that ours was a party built out of the trade unions, and we're keen to see people make a contribution to improving the pay and conditions in their local workplace as a precondition of joining the Labor Party.
Do you think you might have to look at that, though? If you're losing members because of that very reason, someone who says, I want to be part of a modern party, but I don't want to join a union.
Well, ours is a party built out of the trade unions, and Labor members are.
So they should join the Liberal Party then.
I suspect somebody who is that close to joining the Labor Party is unlikely to make a mistake that bad, Kieran.
Senator Fifield, your thoughts on this, because it is something that, as Andrew Leigh says, has been done in Canada, in the UK, the New Zealand Social Progressive Party there also does something similar. Do you like the idea of putting it out to the membership to get their thoughts?
Look, I'm a Westminster traditionalist, and in the Westminster system, historically, it's been the parliamentary party that have elected their leader.
Not in Westminster.
Yeah. Well, we're more true to the Westminster tradition than they themselves are. I think what Labor are trying to do, and we saw this in the election campaign, is increasingly make our politics presidential. They want to make it presidential in terms of the choice of the Labor leader. They want to make it presidential in terms of the choice at a general election. We've got to remember that people going into the ballot box at a general election aren't actually casting a ballot for the Prime Minister. Who the leader of a party is may well be a consideration in their vote, absolutely. But ultimately, they're voting for an individual candidate. They're voting for someone to be a local member. They take that into account. They take into account the policies of a party. They take into account who the parliamentary leader is. They take into account a range of factors. And that's our system. Labor are seeking to fundamentally change that. We saw that through the cult of Kevin, and we're seeing that now through their selection process for their parliamentary leader. But what a strange selection process it is, and a big admission by Andrew that you don't have Labor leaders in the past phoning ordinary branch members. Oh no, they only phone ordinary branch members when they actually want their vote in a ballot. And
you're saying Tony Abbott spends...
Tony Abbott's on the phone to all the members all the time?
On a daily basis? It wouldn't happen that often,
Look, it's not an uncommon thing for Tony Abbott to phone a branch member, that's for sure. But look, and it's still a trade union run outfit. You can't be a member of the Labor Party unless you sign the pledge that, yes, I'm a member of a trade union.
Gentlemen, we've got to go. We're out of time. Good to see you both, Andrew Leigh and Senator Mitch Fifield.
Congrats, Mitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, quick break. We'll be back with the Greens leader, Chris